I searched for the last 20 years in the forests of North America for the Sasquatch. I saw footprints here and there. I'm looking for the creature now which makes the footprints, and I will keep on searching till I find the damn thing.
For 21 years, Rene Dahinden of Vancouver has been roaming the mountains of the Pacific coast from California to northern British Columbia. He's carrying 2 cameras and a rifle, and he's loaded for Sasquatch. In all of those 21 years, Dahinden has never even caught a sniff of the beast. But whatever else he is, Dahinden is a man with a mission. Like any man with a mission, he runs a big risk, the risk that people are going to think he's crazy. Almost any scientist will tell you there's about as much chance of finding a Sasquatch running around these mountains as there is of Dahinden's encountering a unicorn or Lewis Carroll's frumious bandersnatch. What he's after is what many men are after: recognition, fame, perhaps even fortune. There are many ways to achieve this. His way is not the easy way. It is, in fact, the most unusual way, but it's his way.
I don't know what else is there which has this challenge. I couldn't see myself getting a steady job, 8 to 5, 2 weeks a year holiday, your nice circle of so-called friends, a $50,000 or $60,000 home which is paid off in 35 years, and all this rubbish, totally unimportant things. If I would be forced to live that way, I think I would go behind the woodshed and blow my head off.
Still, even a Sasquatch investigator has to eat, and Dahinden earns a bare living here on the grounds of the Vancouver Gun Club. He has a job unique in Canada, a job of his own invention. He's a lead miner. Dahinden reclaims the tons of lead shot scattered downrange from the shotguns of the club marksmen. Like an old-time prospector, Dahinden scoops up earth and dumps it into a sluice box, where the water flushes away the dirt and leaves a small pile of lead pellets, which he then sells back to the club. It's a monotonous job, but Dahinden can work when he wants to and when he needs to pay the bills. In 4 or 5 months every spring, he can earn roughly $4,000, and for him, that's enough.
I consider my life very uncomplicated. The job is a job. I don't have to think about it. I just shovel and I can think about other things. I live very cheaply. I don't bother about other people. I have my own problems, and I'm not involved in anything else beside my job and my search for the Sasquatch. Absolutely nothing.
Dahinden lives trouble-free and rent-free in this tiny cabin, 6 by 7 by 12 feet. Here, he's surrounded by the things that really mean something in his life. A small library of popular anthropology, man, monkeys, and apes, the abominable snowman, Bigfoot, including his own book on the Sasquatch. In another corner, his hunting rifle, a pair of giant footprints immortalized in plaster of Paris, a statue of the beast carved by a friend, letters by the hundreds from Sasquatch fans of all ages, and a filing cabinet of eyewitness reports going back more than 100 years.
Many people think that the Sasquatch is something new, which just isn't so. We have, for example, David Thompson in 1811 reported footprints found in the upper Athabasca River, where the township of Jasper is today. We have Teddy Roosevelt writing in his book, The Wilderness Hunter, about stories told to him by 2 prospectors. In British Columbia, we have a thing here from July the 4th, 1884, of a capturing of some kind of hairy, man-like creature.
This is Jacko.
Right.
Described as something of the gorilla type. He has long, black, strong hair and resembles a human being with one exception. His entire body, excepting his hands or paws, and his feet are covered with glossy hair about 1 inch long.
Then, of course, we have the classic, what we call a classic in the Sasquatch files. And this is the story of Albert Ostman, who claims he was kidnapped in 1924 by a Sasquatch and carried off in his sleeping bag.
Well, how did you get into the Sasquatch business?
I came to Canada from Switzerland end of October 1953. I was 23 years old. I was working for a dairy farmer 17 miles west of Calgary. one night there was a report on the newspaper about the Daily Mail newspaper in England sponsoring an expedition to look for the abominable snowman. I said to the farmer there, I said, wouldn't this be something to take part in? He said, well, you don't have to go that far. They got hairy buggers like this in British Columbia. His exact word. He didn't anymore quite know the name Sasquatch. He just called hairy things out there, you know. From then on, I pestered him constantly, you know. It kind of grabbed me. You know, that was the beginning.
It was the beginning of years of research, and Dahinden found himself breaking new ground. At that time, in the mid-50s, the Sasquatch was considered nothing more than Indian folklore. The word itself, Sasquatch, is derived from an Indian term meaning roughly wild man of the woods. And even Dahinden himself thought at first that he was looking for some demented and presumably hairy Indian turned wild in the bush. In 1956, Dahinden married his Swedish girlfriend, Wanja, and together they began collecting information from the newspaper files, libraries, and museums of Vancouver.
It wasn't a hobby, it was just something that we really wanted to pursue, you know, to find out about. You know, we were quite serious about it, and I was, as I say, like, Rene would come home from work and we would start writing letters from 5 o'clock to 12 o'clock at night to all the places we could possibly think up. And then answering them, and then we got replies, and we wrote to Russia, we wrote all over the world, like, you know, boxes of letters and stuff.
Dahinden's big break came in 1957. That was Centennial Year in British Columbia, and the town council of Harrison Hot Springs came up with a unique centennial project, a Sasquatch hunt. Nobody took it too seriously. It was, in fact, a blatant publicity stunt to put Harrison Hot Springs on the tourist map of BC, and it worked. The news kicked the royal family off the front pages of the Vancouver daily papers, and overnight the town became the land of the Sasquatch. Dahinden was hired to lead the expedition, all, of course, in a spirit of fun.
You honestly believe that there is a Sasquatch in existence?
Yes, I do.
Why is that, sir?
Oh, after I talked with eyewitnesses and people who seen Sasquatch on their own, and all the proof we got on the whole deal, I certainly think that it isn't easy to dismiss the whole matter.
How about the application of the 21-year-old Ontario girl, sir, with her idea to lure one of the Sasquatch out into the open? What have you to say about that?
After I heard about that girl from Ontario, I thought maybe we could send an application to Marilyn Monroe to get her up here. But to be serious, we tried to organize this expedition for this summer and go into the Chehalis Mountains. And if we can get the necessary support, it will be only a matter of time till we find the Sasquatch.
Let's say I was very young, very enthusiastic. I thought, you know, there's Sasquatch out in the bush. I run out there, grab one by the tail, take him home to mother, and it's all over. This is 20 years after, and I'm still looking for that tail to hang on to. I was very young. Sometimes I'm rather embarrassed about the things I said. You know, very much... Well, I even went so far as think of should learn the Indian language, you know. It's, well, it didn't work out that way.
For a few years, Rene and his wife settled down in Harrison Hot Springs. They had their first child, Eric, and Rene found seasonal work managing a boat rental business at the marina of the Harrison Hot Springs Hotel. His aim was to save enough money during the summer to finance his Sasquatch hunt during the winter. It didn't work out. After 4 seasons, the boat business floundered, and Rene devoted himself totally to his hunt for the Sasquatch.
After that, he was just quite set on finding it. He wanted to sort of, not exactly be famous, but he wanted to do, this was his thing, he wanted to do that. And it eventually developed into a sort of obsession, you know. And the wintertime was harder and harder for him to come back here. He felt that everything was so slow, you know, life was fairly dull, and everybody going to work day in and day out. I just felt that he should be more interested in his family, you know, but he just wasn't. He had his Sasquatches and his lead business, and that was that. So finally he went away on February, I guess, and he said he just couldn't stand it anymore up around here, and he felt he was spending his money and the money he was saving for a Sasquatch hunt just to go on food for us, you know. He just couldn't stand seeing his money being frittered away on little details, you know. So he felt he just couldn't take it anymore, and then he left.
We part the company in a nice way, you know, as adults, more or less. My 2 sons are with their mother, and I'm somebody said the thing was either it's the Sasquatch or me. Well, I choose the Sasquatch, right or wrong. I'm not crying about it, you know.
With his life now devoted to the Sasquatch, Dahinden went on pursuing the trail, traveling to areas where the beast had been seen, talking to eyewitnesses, checking out their reports. Always a giant stride behind his quarry, always arriving on the scene just after the Sasquatch had gone. Always, for 20 years, having to settle for a photograph of the tracks and a plaster cast of the footprint.
But, you know, here, there's some of them found which were up to 17.5 inches.
In the United States, they call the monster Bigfoot. Have a look at these plaster casts of its footprints, and you can tell why without too much trouble. One shoemaker estimates that the owner of these feet would need a shoe size 21, 13 sizes wider than the biggest now on the market. So I guess you could say that the hunt for the Sasquatch is now a Cinderella story. They've got the shoe. What they need now is the foot. But Cinderella was not only seen, but filmed in 1967 at a creek in California by a former rodeo rider named Roger Patterson. That short, blurred strip of film is the most important evidence yet submitted by the Sasquatch hunters. In 10 years, no scientist, no filmmaker, nobody has been able to prove it a fake.
The photographer is changing position because the creature walks behind some trees. And of course, in all excitement, he's wiggling the camera all over.
Couldn't that just be a guy in a fur suit?
Well, let's see when it comes to it again. I explain to you why it isn't. When you look at it closely, you can see the knees are flexed constantly, which isn't a human walk. We think it weighs about 700 pounds, comparing it with a gorilla, for example. You can't compare it with human weight because it just isn't built that way.
Right.
And you see now, watch the knees there.
This film strip lasts only 40 seconds, but when Dahinden runs it over and over through the projector, forwards, backwards, in slow motion and stopped completely, it gets pretty convincing. At least it did to me. But the scientists are more difficult to impress, as Dahinden knows all too well. Like some Sasquatch missionary, he's carried the film and his plaster footprints halfway around the world, showing them off to scientists as far away as Moscow. Without exception, the scientific communities of the world have been interested but skeptical. Typical is the reaction of scientists at the British Columbia Provincial Museum, scientists like Dr. Charles Guiguet.
But the basic thing is there is no concrete evidence at all of this animal. We have no skulls, no bones, nothing. Just these nebulous footprints which can be manufactured, or movies which can be manufactured.
It's true. Footprints and film can and have been faked. Ray Pickens of Chehalis, Washington, fooled a lot of people with his homemade Sasquatch boots, but he did not fool Dahinden. After 20 years, Dahinden knows what he's looking for, and he's sick of arguing with the so-called experts, and sick of the commercial exploitation of what's been his life's work. The Sasquatch has taken hold of the public's fancy in recent years, and it's become a commercial gold mine. This past year, one movie alone took in roughly $16 million at the box office. Dahinden wants a piece of that action, a big piece, and he wants revenge on the scientists who've been scoffing at him for so long.
The scientists, I call them the 100% boys. They want the body, the carcass in front of them. Then they say, well, it seemed to indicate there's something here.
If you did catch one or kill one, what would you do with it?
Let me say that I'm getting very bitter, very hostile. I would put a tremendous pressure on the scientific communities to have a change there. I would exploit it financially. Not that I have a great desire for lots of money, but the world is a big place and there are other mysteries, and I don't want to go to 20 years of scrimping and, you know, I like to do all kinds of things. I would wring it out to the last ounce in every which way.
How much would it be worth?
I don't even gonna comment. I made up my mind. Either I get what I want, or the creature will be staying out in the bush and I will go back to work. And I never would move an inch.
What's your price?
No comment.
Come on, you're among friends. You can tell us. What is it, $1 million?
I wouldn't even get out of bed for that. I wouldn't even get out of bed for it.
the early 1800s, the Indians of British Columbia, Canada, told the white man about the legend of Bigfoot, or Sasquatch as they called him. Sasquatch is an Indian word for wild man or hairy man of the mountain. He was thought to be 7 to 9 feet tall and weigh 600 to 800 pounds. That did it. The search for Bigfoot was on. After 200 years, without any proof the creature exists, the search continues. Of course, the people who live near the legend continue to view Bigfoot's existence much as they always have.
No.
Sasquatch? No, I don't think so. Slightly.
Everything else is going on, why not?
Yeah.
There's another Bigfoot legend, Rene Dahinden. He's Canada's foremost Sasquatch hunter. For 30 years, the Swiss-born searcher has worked odd jobs to support his hunting sprees.
It's a long drag, 30 years never having seen and still wondering if the creature exists. You have to have dedication, you have to be stubborn, very stubborn. You get pretty tough, pretty nasty and cynical.
Rene lives alone in an old mobile home on gun club property. It's sparsely furnished and stuffed with Bigfoot files and the footprint casting he found in Northern California.
The 15-inch footprints has about a 99, roughly 100 square inch area, where my own foot, which is an 8.5, and just normal foot has about 33 square inches.
Rene found this footprint in 1957. It's as close to Bigfoot as he's ever come. Considered a meticulous investigator and researcher, he studied more than 3,000 footprints and viewed numerous photographs and films.
There was a film which was taken in Northern California in October of 1967. This is the only film which has any claim to consideration. You can see the muscle movements, you can see the natural movements, the flowing motion, the animal grace. This creature is what is called, has a power walk.
But lately, the creature has been lying low. There have been very few sightings.
We have no explanation, just non-explanation. We don't even speculate anymore because it just doesn't make sense. We just accept it and wonder, all of us hoping things are getting better, like the economy, If I ever would see a Sasquatch, I would be greatly shocked. I wouldn't believe my eyes. I carry cameras with me with telephoto lenses at all time. I carry binoculars and I also carry a gun. If, I ever see one, that I see him long enough so I can take photos of it. You want proof for your own sake.
About twice a month, Dahinden tramps the hills of British Columbia. His years of experience have taught him to be a better hunter.
I don't think about Sasquatch. I don't walk around there, with my gun up on my shoulder, peeking behind every pineapple tree, Not at all. Any place a bear can survive, a Sasquatch will survive. We assume it is an animal because it has no tools, no weapons, no fire. It will eat meat, it will eat anything. The largest amount of his food would be vegetation, berries or fish, easy to get stuff. There are very few reports of females with young ones. By this I mean they say they didn't see any breasts, so therefore they assumed they were male.
Dahinden has crisscrossed these hills for years looking for the creature, looking for proof of its existence.
I think that it would be more logical, and that might sound crazy as hell, be more logical that the creature exists, because trying to explain everything we have, the footprints, the reports, the legend, the totem poles, the films, trying to explain it away really gets rather ridiculous. What else is there with such a challenge? You have to stick with what you think is right and finish the job. If you succeed, find the biggest scientific discovery the world has ever seen. Another creature beside man.